Video games are amazing. They can take you into another world, on an adventure into the unfamiliar and unknown. Immerse you in a rich and complex world filled with lovable and interesting characters.
And sometimes they can frustrate you beyond belief.
I have not played a lot of games. In fact, most of what people consider to be the best games of all time are ones I'm yet to even think about. Take all of these games, for example. Now, I know, you're probably thinking, have I played anything? Well, your answer is yes, I've played about 3 games.
That might be a good thing. That means you probably don't have to hear me talk about games you've already heard 100 times already. Probably. Regardless, I did my best to condense all of the games I've ever played into a list of 15 for your enjoyment. So sit back and relax as we dive into my top 15 video games of all time.
As of this video that I've played, because I still haven't played The Witcher 3.
Before we begin, this list is a 1 game per franchise rule. Otherwise, the whole list would just be Mario games, okay?
Also, another rule before we begin, just to shut everyone up. The order that I'm placing these games in is not necessarily what I would consider to be the best or a better game. It's just what I like the most, okay? Opinions exist, alright? It's my list. Just Cause 3, aka Michael Bay Simulator, is a game where everything blows up. That blows up, that blows up, everything blows up. I've never really gotten into Grand Theft Auto, but my equivalent was the Just Cause series, in which you take control of Rico Rodriguez and embark on a mission to destroy as much as humanly possible. Just Cause 2 was great, but Just Cause 3 was a significant improvement, updating the graphics, scale of the open world, story, characters, and also gave you a wingsuit. The wingsuit is freaking awesome! Just Cause's staple grappling hook and parachute are back with a vengeance, but they are improved from the previous game. Now you can cause innocent people even more unnecessary pain and suffering. It was so much fun to just dick around with the grapples and the massive arsenal the game provides you with. The driving wasn't great, but there's plenty to mess around with in the game's massive and busy map. Just Cause 3 takes place in the fictional region of Medici within Italy, in which Rico assists a group of rebels in freeing the region from the tyrannical reign of Di Ravello. Unlike the previous game, Just Cause 3's story felt a lot more comfortable and straightforward. It wasn't anything complicated or heavy. It was a basic enough plot to accommodate the bombastic gameplay. I didn't mind the narrative personally, but the story missions did get a bit repetitive. The sandbox was much more enjoyable as you could fly around the map and do as much damage as you could. It's outrageously entertaining to wreak as much havoc as possible, and that's really what the game places its emphasis on. It's ridiculous, but it's incredibly fun. And though not a game I was emotionally invested in like many others on this list, Just Cause 3 kept me entertained for a very long time.
The Matrix is a cool movie, right? And so is John Wick. John Wick's freaking awesome. Well, what do you get when you combine the two and throw in some time slowing down powers? Your answer? Superhot. Essentially, the point of this game is to kill a bunch of red guys, but it's the way in which you kill these red guys that makes Superhot so fun. The game adapts the brilliantly simple concept of time only moving when you move, which then gives you time throughout the levels to work out your plan of attack, pondering who to kill in what order to avoid getting your face blown off. So in levels, you punch one guy, grab his gun, shoot the other guy, hide from the guy at the back, and then get a sword and slice them in two. Even though I died like a billion times per level, I've never felt cooler playing a video game before. Superhot is more or less a game about trial and error, and you'll find yourself getting shot in the face more often than not. But one of the most satisfying feelings is finally conquering a tough level, and then getting to watch it all back in fast motion and pretend that you meant to do all that and definitely didn't shoot most of the enemies out of panic. There's also a little bit of plot thread in there that makes sense of my Matrix reference, but hey, who cares? I just sliced a bullet in half. How freaking cool is that? No one ever talks about this game. I have gone my entire life and not a single person has ever mentioned that this game exists. In fact, if I wasn't holding the box right now, I would be convinced it wasn't even real. I think I may be one of the only people in the entire world who actually owns this game. Aside from Wikipedia, they have one too. Drawn to Life was a game that was released for the Nintendo DS in 2007, and it is amazing. The game box is a bit misleading because it makes you think you're going to be playing as Super Saiyan Goku, but you actually get to design your own character as the game took full advantage of the DS's stylus. So, naturally, my incredibly creative self just colored the frickin' thing in. It also let you draw a lot of things in the background, so your shitty little scribbles now populated the game world. It was a level of interactivity I was not used to with the game, and it blew my mind to have such an impact on the game world around me. It's one half platformer, and another half a surprisingly interesting story outside of the levels. Drawn to Life sees you playing as the creator, essentially a god for a species known as the Reposer, who call to you for help after you abandoned them for years, you heartless son of a bitch. You must save the Raposa and their village by crafting a hero to defeat the evil Wilfrey, a corrupted Raposa that created an army of shadow-like creatures that you run into during the levels. Each level sees your hero having to rescue Raposa and collecting pages from the Book of Life, which Wilfrey also stole. And each stage world was capped off with an honestly terrifying boss. Even as a stupid dumb kid, I loved the story of this game and fell in love with the adorable Raposa and the village they resided in. In all honesty, it's a bit underwhelming when I look back on it today. I remember my character looking not as shit, but while the levels may not hold up, the art style and the story most certainly do. Drawn to Life was one of the first games I ever played, and it was a welcome introduction to the joys of video games.
Wait, there's a second one? Be right back, I'm gonna continue my childhood, I'll do the video later. Another incredibly underrated game, Zone of the Enders grants you the experience to play the equivalent of every awesome mecha anime ever. Created by the brilliant Hideo Kojima, Zone of the Enders sees the player taking control of a whiny piece of crap who is gifted a giant robot. Man, that sounds familiar. And the whole game sees you engaging in fantastic mecha battles that see you zipping around the screen and slashing the hell out of anything that dares to attack you. The Jehudi, the mech you pilot, has an amazing design, and the locations you traverse really do make you feel like you're piloting a giant robot. Zone of the Enders does well to capture the feel of being a mecha pilot, and it's one of the most unique things about the game. Though the gameplay could get repetitive at times, it does throw in bosses and various other challenges to keep the gameplay interesting. I've never played the original PS2 version, though I did get my hands on the PS3 HD collection that contains both the first and second games, though I haven't played the second one yet because I'm lazy, and I was not disappointed. High-speed robot action? I mean, how could you turn that down? I've been told the second game is an improvement, and I guarantee once I get around to it, I'll probably like it more, but for now, Zone of the Enders remains one of the best mecha games I've ever played. Until 2016, but I'll get to that later. Journey is a game like no other. A story told without words, without dialogue, carried solely by its characters and beautiful locations. Also, it's freaking gorgeous. Seriously, this is a PS3 game. I spent most of my time playing it just admiring how goddamn amazing this game looks. Journey doesn't offer much gameplay-wise that is super innovative or unlike anything we've ever seen. It's a game as simple as its title. You're on a journey, and your only companion is someone who is completely identical to you in every way. Once again, you can't communicate with them, but you have to use teamwork to traverse the vast lands that Journey presents to you. What made Journey so unique was, at the time, this companion was actually another person online playing the game. That's right, your mute companion throughout your adventure was another human player. That blew me away the first time I played the game. Whoever you were, person I never got to find out the identity of, thank you for going on a journey with me. While Journey nowadays obviously doesn't have much in the way of a player base, it's still a remarkable adventure, even by yourself. Throughout Journey, there are small cutscenes that vaguely explain the plot of the game, but much of Journey's appeal is the locations in which you traverse. Did I mention how pretty this game is? PS3. PS3, ladies and gentlemen. It's an unforgettably unique experience that is quite hard to capture in words. You really have to play it for yourself to understand why Journey is such a memorable adventure. Also, it's freaking gorgeous. I mean, look at this. When I was like 10, Dragon Ball Z was the coolest shit ever. Bunch of muscly men beating up weird alien creatures and shooting lasers and shit. This was what true happiness was at the time. However, I grew out of it as I got older. I haven't been keeping up with DBZ for the past few years. What the hell is a Jiren? Everyone who was into Dragon Ball Z, including me at the time, wished at some point they could turn Super Saiyan and start blasting off Kamehamehas like it was nobody's business. The closest I got was the day my cousin gifted me 2 games. This one sucks. But this is one of the best fighting games ever. Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi 3 has a name that just rolls off the tongue, but more importantly was a game that perfectly captured the spirit of what made DBZ so awesome in the first place. With a fast-paced combat system with a ton of amazing combos and attacks, it really did feel like you were playing the show. It was the first fighting game where I actually learned how to play instead of just spamming buttons, and I was rewarded by being able to pull off some crazy moves that made me feel way more accomplished about myself than I probably should have. It was the perfect game to play with friends and was endlessly entertaining. Tenkaichi 3 also lets you play through the show with the story mode, as well as giving you a what-if mode that lets you explore scenarios that never eventuated. However, the best part about this game is undoubtedly its gigantic character roster. Seriously, there must be like 1 million characters in this game. You can play as Goku, you can play as a giant lizard and beat the shit out of a small child. You can play as Frieza Soldier. I freaking love Frieza Soldier. If there's any game on this list that I've spent the most hours playing, it would undoubtedly be this one.
No matter how old both the game and I become, I will always find myself coming back to it to duke it out with friends. For those who love DBZ just as much as I did, Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was the perfect companion. Much like Dragon Ball Z, I was practically raised on Sonic the Hedgehog. I was obsessed with this little guy back in the day, as I've talked about so often on this channel. My obsession with this snarky blue fanfiction bait all started one day when my parents went shopping for a game on the brand new Nintendo DS they got me, and grabbed a random game off the shelf. The game that started it all, Sonic Rush. I loved this game so much that I never made it past the 3rd level. Freaking casino level can go burn in hell. What made this game so awesome was the simplicity of speeding through colourful and cleverly designed levels that returned Sonic to his roots. Rush had awesome special stages, formidable and fun boss battles, and an awesome boost feature that let you speed through levels with ease. It also introduced one of my personal favourite Sonic characters, Blaze the Cat, who had her own campaign mode dedicated to her, as well as a pretty good boss stage where the two of them fight. I still remember the day I conquered the final boss. Sonic Rush brought me so much happiness. Its sequel was great too. Sonic Rush Adventure had a lot more emphasis on the vehicles, but I had a really great time with it anyway. Aside from Marine, she really freaked me out. However, there was always something about the original Rush that kept me entertained for ages. Maybe it was the game's insanely awesome soundtrack. Yeah, it might be that actually. There are a lot of great Sonic games amidst all of the terrible ones, but Sonic Rush will always hold a special place in my heart for being a game that brought me so much joy, as well as roping me into one of the most inconsistent gaming franchises of all time. Love you, Sonic. Shadow of the Colossus is a classic. A game with a very simple but very unique premise. You play as Wanda. All you have is a magic sword that tells you where to go. Sometimes. And a horse that doesn't frickin' come to you even when you call it a million damn times. And your job is to slay 16 massive colossi in order to revive a girl. That's pretty much all Shadow of the Colossus gives you, as it tosses you into an empty and mysterious world, with mysterious characters, a mysterious plot, and a mysterious objective. Though it sounds strange, it was quite refreshing to play a game that withheld details of what the hell was going on right until the very end, where it completely turned around what you thought you were doing. The game has a basic, vague story that comes to an unexpected and tragic climax after you slay all 16 colossi, and these battles with the colossi, they're each completely different, exciting, and indescribably epic. Though some are definitely better than others. Though the game suffers from a lot of walking around and doing nothing, and has unfortunately clunky controls, the experience overall is unforgettable. Each colossi battle is a unique undertaking on its own, and there was nothing more satisfying than striking that final blow. While I've never played the PS2 version, I am incredibly glad I picked up the PS4 remake, because the graphics are absolutely stunning, making the colossi feel incredibly daunting and fascinating. The empty world you traverse whilst traveling to each new boss gave the game a very distinct atmosphere. Though frustrating at times, piece of shit, Shadow of the Colossus was a truly memorable adventure. I can't say I'm the biggest fan of first-person shooters, especially because the market is filled with tons and tons of indifferent games that really don't have that much to offer. But one day I came across this, a game where you can pilot a giant robot and beat the crap out of other giant robots. How awesome does that sound? I mean, it has a giant robot on the cover, how could you go wrong? And awesome it was. Titanfall 2 truly surprised me. I'd never played the first one, but apparently that one didn't have single-player campaign for some reason, and was only online, so thank God I didn't buy it. However, I am truly grateful the second one did, because it was awesome. Like, holy shit, this game caught me off guard. I went into it expecting a pretty basic shooter experience, but it blew me away with how fleshed out and entertaining it was. You play as Jack Cooper, and are partnered with the Titan BT, whom you form a surprising bond with as the game progresses. I never thought I'd be so emotionally attached to a frickin' robot, but goddamn the ending had me in tears, it was just so sad. Gameplay with or without the Titan was great, as it was balanced out nicely. While in the mech, gameplay was slow, with heavier weapons, though outside it was more fast-paced, and you were able to jump and run on walls. The story was well-paced and kept me interested throughout, even when I had no idea what I was getting myself into. The action and combat was solid, there were a lot of incredibly cool mechanics, such as the level with the time travel ability, and overall it was just really freaking fun. I bought this game because I wanted to play a game where I could pilot a giant robot and kill things, and Titanfall 2 gave me not only that, but an incredible single-player campaign that kept me invested from beginning until end. Transformers doesn't have a very good track record when it comes to games, and for a long time all that fans of the Autobots and Decepticons had were this and this, and
and this. And then in 2010, High Moon Studios stepped in with Transformers War for Cybertron, a game that let you experience firsthand the devastation of the Cybertronian Great War. The game was pretty good, and a welcome surprise to the franchise. And in 2012 came its sequel, Fall of Cybertron, a game that blew everyone away by doing everything a sequel should do. Fall of Cybertron took everything great about war and improved it by tenfold. And also threw in the Dinobots just for good measure, because why not? Fall of Cybertron plunges the player into the most critical moments of the war, with the desperate Autobots enacting a last-ditch effort to get the hell off the planet. Thus begins a journey taking you through both sides of the conflict, as you shoot your way through levels playing as various different characters, before culminating with one of the greatest final battles in any game I've ever played. Fall of Cybertron perfectly captured everything that made Transformers amazing, and gave us an experience unlike anything the series had ever done before. Fall of Cybertron is some of the best Transformers has to offer, and truly knocked it out of the park. Shame that there's no games that came out after it though. Nope, none at all. Pokemon is awesome. The characters are awesome, the battles are awesome, and Wobbuffet is awesome. Specifically Wobbuffet. The games are great too, but one thing that the games have always lacked is the sheer electricity of the battles between Pokemon like those in the anime. No pun intended. While the anime honestly isn't all that great, one of its strongest aspects is its portrayal of how amazing Pokemon battles should actually look. And while the games are getting there, I've never felt that any of the main series Pokemon games have ever truly replicated the exciting and fast-paced battles like those in the anime. Enter Pokmon Tournament, a game that answered the prayers of so many longtime fans of the series. An exhilarating, brightly coloured, and insanely fun fighter featuring a fairly large roster of characters, attack stages, and support Pokemon. I'm not great at fighting games, but Pokmon Tournament is so fun that it doesn't even matter. And for those who do more than just button mash, Pokmon has an interesting counter and grab system to ensure that your piece of garbage opponent doesn't just spam the entire time. And of course, you can't discuss Pokmon without talking about its cherry on top. Its sensational soundtrack. Seriously, just listen to it. It's magical. The tunes playing in the background of stages really amp you up for an epic clash between Pokemon. The only thing I don't quite understand is the roster. I mean, you've got the essentials, Pikachu, Blaziken, Lucario, but who in God's name thought putting the frickin' Lantern Pokemon was a good idea? Genesect? No. Infernape? Nah. Oddish? Course not. But the frickin' Lantern! I mean, aside from that, I have no complaints. Every other character is pretty awesome. Except Suicune. Screw you, Suicune. Pokmon was originally an arcade game that was ported to the Wii U, and the only thing they added was Pikachu wearing a costume.
I mean, it's gotta count for something, right?
Though its biggest fault was having to be played on this thing. Ugh. Luckily, an angel descended from the heavens one day and gifted Nintendo the Switch, one of the best damn purchases I've made in years. And someone at Nintendo obviously thought, hey, what if we put that fighting game with the Pikachu on it? And holy crap, it makes all the difference. The Switch's controls are far superior to the worst designed thing in history, really allowing for a more authentic fighting game experience. It plays and feels so much smoother on the Switch, and the DX edition is truly what elevated Pokmon to legendary status for me. Also because the port added like 3 extra characters. Woohoo! Though a bit weak story-wise, Pokmon has more than enough to keep you entertained, and plenty to keep you coming back for more. The Uncharted franchise is one of my favorite game series of all time, as it delivers one of the most consistently fantastic gaming experiences I've ever come across. Out of the equally amazing 5 games, I honestly could not choose my favorite, but most people seem to say 2, so I'm gonna go with 2.
I'm sorry, Uncharted 4, I still love you.
Uncharted has a breathtaking narrative to go along with its stellar gameplay, with a charismatic Nathan Drake being one of the greatest protagonists I've ever had the honor of playing. A lot of people have likened Uncharted to that of a movie, and it truly does feel like you are playing one. The insane areas and set pieces that you come across in these games is remarkable. Uncharted 2, for example, begins with you dangling from a crashed train. I mean, that's freaking amazing. But Uncharted 4 looks so good. It's so hard to choose. All 4 of the games take you on a thrilling adventure which almost always ends in Nate destroying something, as you overcome hordes of soldiers in the supernatural in an attempt to uncover treasure of some kind. The gameplay involves climbing, lots of climbing, shooting, lots of shooting, and puzzles. Ugh. But Uncharted manages to have a perfect blend of each to create an adventure that never gets boring. I'm one of the few people who actually give a shit about the story in video games, and I've never been more impressed by a game's narrative than Uncharted. The characters and dialogue are expertly written, and Uncharted does a fantastic job at making them feel human. They're believable, they're lovable, and they feel real. As I've mentioned, this helps contribute to making Uncharted feel like you're playing through a really awesome movie. Please don't make an Uncharted movie though, that wouldn't be good. I can't praise these games enough. I never wanted them to end as I made my way through their brilliant narratives. There wasn't really one that stuck out more than the other. To me, each Uncharted game was equally amazing and a unique adventure on its own. I'd give this spot to all 4 games if I could, but I think it has to come down to 2. It improved everything from the already great original, and took Nate and the player on an exhilarating adventure to find Marco Polo's lost fleet. I feel like I could play through it hundreds of times and still feel giddy during the game's amazing action and story sequences. Though the entire series is unforgettable, I award this spot to Uncharted 2. And also Uncharted 4. And 3. One's not bad either. I've never much enjoyed online games, as should be evident by the lack of any big multiplayer games on this list. So when Splatoon came out, with most of the emphasis being placed on it being Nintendo's answer to Call of Duty, I was a little skeptical. Getting my ass kicked by a bunch of 12-year-olds online wasn't exactly my idea of a good time. Oh, screw you, K6! When I finally got my hands on the game though, I realized that I actually enjoyed getting my ass kicked by a bunch of 12-year-olds. Kinda. K6, I hope you die! Splatoon has one of the most unique and fantastic ideas I've seen from a game in a long time, and the exhilarating gameplay definitely matches this. The game is fast-paced and exciting, and it has amazing designs for the characters. Particularly the Squid Sisters, because the only issue for me was this thing. Again. It wasn't impossible to use, but it was super clunky, and having to drag it up and down to move around on the screen was And then someone at Nintendo remembered the angel from a minute ago that gave them the Switch, and Reggie was all like, hey, we should put the Squid Game on that thing as well. And so resulted in Splatoon 2, baby! Much like Pokemon, Splatoon 2 plays ridiculously better on the Switch, with the gameplay being much faster and way more fun than it was on the Wii U. I was so excited for this game that I bought it before I even owned a Switch. Yeah, I used it as a doorstop for about a month. The campaign was shorter and a tad more underwhelming, but it was still a blast to play, with each level being so creative and different to the ones before and after it. Both the first and second games contain witty characters and hilariously written dialogue. Nintendo did such a fantastic job of building this world. Splatoon 2 is an explosion of amazing ideas, and it's some of the most fun I've had in ages when playing a video game. I feel like this one is pretty self-explanatory. There is no game that is as exhilarating and endlessly fun as a Smash Bros. Game. Whether it be the charm of the original, the fast-paced action in Melee, the epic Subspace Emissary in Brawl, or the absolute bullshit of getting your ass kicked by Cloud, every single Smash Bros. Game has brought with it something special. Much like Uncharted, it is incredibly hard to narrow down what I would consider my favorite, and though Brawl was the epitome of my childhood, it's the recent Smash 4 that does take the cake for me. No matter how many times I come back to it, Smash Bros will always bring with it a unique sense of competition and happiness. The gameplay is extremely fun and easy to pick up, but challenging to master. And I'll be honest, the people who get a little too into it kinda scare me a bit. Smash 4 has a gigantic roster of fantastic and unique characters, limited not only to just Nintendo's all-star cast, but also Mega Man, Sonic, Pac-Man, and please nerf. It's the ultimate realization of the childhood dreams of many, getting to take control of our favorite video game characters and beating the absolute crap out of each other. As I said, I'm not the best at fighting games, but Smash Bros brings out in me energy and excitement that no other game can. Smash 4 especially, though lacking the amazing Subspace Emissary, contains so much in it, from the items, characters, stages, and extra modes to partake in. It's not a game you can just pick up and stop playing after a few minutes. Whenever I play Smash, I'm gonna be there for a while. Bringing with it an entire new genre of fighting game, Smash Bros is the perfect game to sit down and duke it out with friends, and I'm confident anyone who's ever picked up a controller to battle it out using their favorite Nintendo characters can attest to that. I said at the beginning of this video that I was only going to allow one game per franchise, and the Mario series is the reason for that rule. Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. They're all amazing games in their own right that were some of the better parts of my childhood. I heavily contested putting Mario 64 on the list because it is one of my favorite games of all time, but I felt it was just beat out by the recently released Super Mario Odyssey, which doesn't have TikTok Clock in it. Odyssey is the best thing I have ever played in my entire life ever. This is a game filled with pure happiness and bliss, containing so many whimsical and inventive ideas that fill its vast and colourful landscapes, with interesting mechanics and a seemingly endless amount of challenges to complete. Also, there's a dog. This is the best game ever. My entire experience playing Odyssey was nothing but pure, unadulterated joy. Odyssey really does feel like an adventure, as you make your way across beautiful worlds in order to rescue Peach from Bowser. Okay, maybe it's lacking in the story department, but, I mean, Bowser's wearing a hat this time, so this is totally different. Each of the many kingdoms you traverse were so wonderfully different and containing their own personalities. The objective in the game is to collect moons, and the ones you have to collect in each world varied wildly in difficulty, but they were nonetheless satisfying to collect. This was a game I could spend hours upon hours just running around and exploring. The kingdoms are populated with so much to do, and it's a game that you can come back to almost infinitely and there will still be areas waiting for you to explore. The possession mechanic that Odyssey introduced allowed for so many creative challenges throughout the game. Almost everything you possess has its own powers and abilities that you need to harness in order to solve various challenges. You can become a giant T-Rex, oh my god! I don't think I've ever had this much fun playing a video game. Mario controls so fluidly and smoothly, and Odyssey is one of those games that lets you do things how you want to do them. Super Mario Odyssey is an absolutely brilliant game that really showcases the pure genius and creativity of Nintendo. Or at least the angel which gifted Nintendo all of their best ideas. It took me a lot of time to decide, but I'm happy to say that Super Mario Odyssey is,
At the moment.
my favorite video game of all time. Until I finish playing Drawn to Life 2.